The top 3 trade targets for the Boston Red Sox going into the July 31st trade deadline is a very interesting situation. Okay, because the Red Sox are kind of in a really good spot. They've got too many outfielders. Okay, Jarren Duran, last year's All-Star Game MVP, who finished top 10 in MVP voting for the season, is probably the odd man out. They're in a get better now mode, but I don't think it's the end of the world if they're getting some prospects and some roster players, if that's what it's going to take to get this deal done. Because Jarren Duran's probably the guy that's going to go. Wilyer Abreu just hit his 20th homer. I doubt that's going to happen. He's going to be a 30 home run guy this year who won a Gold Glove last year. This is like when the Celtics used to talk about we're going to break it up. Either Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown's going to get traded. Well, it was always going to be Jaylen Brown. It wasn't going to be Tatum. Okay, if it's going to be one of these corner outfielders, it's going to be Jarren Duran. It's not going to be Wilyer Abreu. So let's look at the 3 guys that they can go out and get. And these are all fairly big names on the market. But there are going to be some ones that are honorable mentions that the Red Sox should still look at. Number 1 trade target for the Red Sox at the deadline, no doubt, Joe Ryan of the Minnesota Twins. This name came up about a month ago, and I am fully bought in to the Joe Ryan train here. There are some concerns that I'll get to at the end of this, but in terms of where he's at right now, he just made his first All-Star team, 29 years old. He is ARB eligible next year, so you're probably going to want to sign him to an extension in the offseason, so he's not just a rental or you're trying to get rid of him. But he's had a terrific year for the Twins. 2.63 ERA, 132 strikeouts, and 116 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts per 9, and a 160 ERA plus. 60% better than the league average pitcher. Okay, the OPS against, the home run percentage against have both gone down over each of the last 2 seasons, but the hard hit percentage and ground ball percentage have gone up. So take the good with the bad. Ground balls, we love. Hard hits, we don't. But here's a stat that's going to sound super nerdy and off the page, but is fantastic when it comes to Joe Ryan. This is the base out run saved. Okay, we're getting real money ball in this. Okay, base out run saved, which basically stands for when people are on base, how many runs did the pitcher save? How many jams are they getting out of? Okay, the league average is 0. Last year, Joe Ryan's was 8. This year, it's 25. So what that tells me is, he probably gets in some jams, but he's as good as basically anybody in the league at getting out of jams. He's as good as about anybody in the league as pitching when guys are on base. That's really fantastic. Okay, I love that. It does, again, mean that he's putting guys on base. His whip is still under 1, just barely under 1. So he's not putting a ton of guys on base. But when you're facing good teams in the dog days and you're facing good teams in the postseason, guys are going to get on base. Who can pitch around that? Joe Ryan can pitch around that. And you want to talk about a 1-2 punch of Garrett Crochet and Joe Ryan to start a playoff series, followed by Brian Bayo and maybe Lucas Giolito? That's as good a rotation as the Red Sox have had going into a postseason since 2018. And it's not particularly close. In fact, it would be the second best that they've had since 2007. That is legit, man. Because if you're going to make the postseason, you're going to be a road team. You're going to be an underdog. But we can throw Garrett Crochet and Joe Ryan at you back to back. That keeps you in a lot of series, man. That is frightening for the other team. Here's my concern. And you're going to find this concern with any young, cost-controlled, big-time starting pitcher, I think, at this point. But here's my major concern on Joe Ryan. He's never pitched more than 160 innings in a season. You can say the same about Garrett Crochet. He's never thrown 165 innings in a season. So your 1-2 punch are about to hit their innings high in late July, early August. Okay? Crochet is getting there. He's thrown about 120, 130, whatever it is. Joe Ryan has already thrown 116 innings. It's concerning. You had the same problem with Tanner Houck last year, and it wasn't terrible to end the season. It wasn't good. But now look at Tanner Houck. He's non-existent. He's not going to pitch for this team this year. He might not even pitch for them again. And if you make a serious investment in Joe Ryan after making a serious investment in Garrett Crochet, and you've got to worry about that, that's a huge deal. That said, I just don't know how many guys you're not going to run into that problem with. I think that might be a necessary evil, a necessary risk to take in 2025. But you add Joe Ryan to Garrett Crochet as a 1-2 punch to start off a postseason series, there's no telling how deep you can get in the playoffs. That is lethal. And obviously the Red Sox desperately need another kind of top of the rotation starter to anchor this rotation. And we're going to talk about another one in this top three, and then we're going to talk about maybe another situation, another direction they can go in terms of starting pitching. So number one is Joe Ryan. Number two, you need to look at first base. The Red Sox do need pitching, but they've got a first base problem right now. Like this Abraham Toro, Romy Gonzalez thing, the luck is running out. Okay? There's no way you can rely on those two guys platoon at first base for the last 2 months of the season. It just can't happen. Toro had a nice little run. Romy Gonzalez, nice against lefties. That's not going to last. And you're starting to see it right now. Those numbers are dipping right now. You can't go into the dog days and into a postseason race with those two guys as your first baseman. Sorry, it can't happen. So the other position you need to look at, obviously, is first base. And it's slim pickings, man. Nate Lowe, Josh Bell, both having bad years. Carlos Santana, 39 years old. And having a bad year, although his numbers have gone up a little bit over the last couple of weeks, excuse me. Number two trade target for the Boston Red Sox, looking at first base, Josh Naylor of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, he is one of the biggest bats on the market. The Arizona is going to come up again, spoiler alert, and Eugenio Suarez at third base is maybe the biggest hitter on the market right now. It is a seller's market more than a buyer's market in this year's trade deadline. But let's look at Josh Naylor at first base. He's a rental, which you've still got Tristan Casas on your roster, so you don't need more than a rental, really. 814 OPS, 126 OPS plus this year. That OPS plus is the second best of his career, even though his power numbers have gone way down this season. He had 31 homers last year in an all-star season. He only has 31 extra base hits this season. 11 homers. Those numbers have gone way down. 11 homers, 58 RBI, had 31 and 108 last year. So his run production total actually isn't that far off, but obviously the homers are not there. He's not played a terrific defensive first base this year, although he has been a good, solid defensive first baseman in the past. I think you're more worried about what the first baseman brings to your lineup. Like, you can bring on someone like Romy Gonzalez or Abraham Toro, who have been just fine defensively at first base, if you need someone in the later innings. But there are some concerns around Josh Naylor. His barrel rate has gone down. But that said, the guy doesn't strike out a lot. He puts a lot of balls in play, which the Red Sox really need. They've kind of gone back to those ugly habits of the first couple of months of the season with strikeouts, unproductive outs. Josh Naylor isn't going to give you that for the most part. He's going to put the ball in play, and he's going to drive in runs. And maybe you say, well, this home run pace can't last forever. He's got to do better than this. He had 31 homers last year. Yeah, we also had 17 the year before, so it's not crazy. But he brings some pop to your lineup. He puts balls in play. He doesn't strike out, and he plays a good enough first base. Josh Naylor is someone you can get probably not all that expensive for a rental, even though he's in his prime, because he's having a down year. So I'm in on bringing in someone like Josh Naylor to come and play first base for you every day for the rest of the season. If it is someone like Nate Lowe, that's someone who has played a Gold Glove first base in the past, in the recent past, 2023, hasn't having a great year right now, both in the field and at the plate, but is probably still a better option than that platoon of Abraham Toro and Romy Gonzalez, just because we know this guy has been an everyday first baseman in the major leagues for a long time, and has done it for some good teams, won the World Series in 2023. So Josh Naylor, Nate Lowe, we'll see. Number 3, we're going to go back to pitching here, and I'm going to cheat. I'm going to put 2 guys in the number 3 spot. So if you're liking the content so far, if you want the Red Sox to make a big deal at this trade deadline, like the video, subscribe to the channel. About 95% of you watching aren't actually subscribed. We're bringing you nothing but Boston sports news every single weekday and all the trade rumors and things like this. So like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, find us on YouTube, or wherever you find your podcasts as well. Number 3, I'm cheating. I'm putting 2 guys here, okay? The number 3 trade targets for the Boston Red Sox at the trade deadline, looking at Arizona, Zach Gallen or Merrill Kelly. Now, you got to stick with me on this one, because Merrill Kelly, on top of being a dead ringer for Chris Elliott as Woogie, and There's Something About Mary, has had much better stats than Zach Gallen this year, like much better. Merrill Kelly is one of the top names in this trade deadline block here. Okay, he's had a tremendous season, better in every stat than Zach Gallen. They are both rentals, but here's how I'm going to break this down. Zach Kelly is obviously the guy you would bring in, Zach Kelly. Merrill Kelly is the guy that you would bring in to be your number 2 or potentially number 3 starter to roll with in a playoff series. Old, he's like 36, and he is a rental, but this year, 3.32 ERA, 1.28 ERA plus, 8 strikeouts per 9. They're actually both at that number, that latter number. And so he will probably be pretty cheap. In terms of, I say that's going to be taken out of context. He won't be cheap, okay? But he'll be cheap versus what you would normally pay for a starter at these kind of numbers at this point in the season, because he is a rental and at his age. But yeah, it's still going to demand a bit of a haul to go and get someone like Merrill Kelly. He would slot in right there, like Joe Ryan, as probably your number 2 starter and an absolute workhorse for you down the stretch. And the good thing about Merrill Kelly is we know that he can pitch more than 160 innings. We already know that, which is lovely. The other guy is Zach Gallen. Zach Gallen is not having a good year. In fact, this is potentially career on the line for a guy like Zach Gallen. But this is a really intriguing one, because there is a school of thought where you roll with, the idea that Lucas Giolito is going to continue to have a good, solid season. Coming off a major injury, he's not just going to give you a good first half, but he's going to give you a good full season. And Brian Bayo, although he didn't have a terrific start on Saturday, still a quality start and has been better. I like the way Brian Bayo's been pitching the last couple of weeks. If you get Giolito and Brian Bayo continuing the way they have the last month or 2 here, then there is an idea that you're actually going out for more of a depth starter, kind of the way you did with Jake Peavy in 2013. That was a huge move for that World Series winning Red Sox team. You were going into the dog days of August and September, and you didn't know who was going to make those starts. Jake Peavy was not lighting it up, but he was giving you good professional starts for 2 months out of that season. Zach Gallen could potentially give you that. The numbers are not great this year. 5.40 ERA, 79 ERA plus. So he's been way down below the league average pitcher, 4.80 FIP. But there's 2 things I like about Zach Gallen. First off, he's got something to prove. He was in line to get like a 7 or 8 year mega deal going into this season at his age 28, 29 season. He was set to make big money going into this year, long-term, 7, 8 years, top of the line, top of the market kind of money. And he didn't. He took a 1-year deal to avoid arbitration, $13.5 million, and he's paying for it. He's sucking right now. So Zach Gallen, monetarily, financially, his career is on the line going into the second half of the season. Or else he's going to be signing Walker Buehler contracts, and who knows what comes of that. If it's anything like the Walker Buehler contract, it's not very good. And the other thing I like about him is he has done it in the past. He was an ace on a team that made the World Series 2 years ago and was one of the brightest young pitching prospects in all of baseball, Zach Gallen. kind of like Sandy Alcantara, who's won a Cy Young Award, who is also on the trade block with an ERA in the 7s. These guys, their careers are on the line here. And Zach Gallen has done it before. Is he going to come in and give you Joe Ryan numbers? Is Zach Gallen going to come into this rotation and give you a 2.5 ERA for the next 2 months? Probably not. But if he gives you a 3.5 ERA, 3.8 ERA, maybe even a 4 as your number 4 starter and eats innings and keeps you in games, that might also be worth it for the Red Sox. And he's not going to cost as much as Merrill Kelly. He's not going to cost as much as Joe Ryan. Because the thing here with any of these deals is none of these three teams, neither of these two teams are really clamoring for Jarren Duran. That's San Diego. That's Philadelphia. You'd have to get a third team in on that deal. Not uncommon, but you're not dealing directly with these two teams for a Jarren Duran deal. So that's where it becomes pretty interesting. Of course, the Red Sox should have interest in Joe Ryan and Josh Naylor and Merrill Kelly, but those teams aren't looking for a corner outfielder. The teams that are also playoff teams. They're not giving up even rentals. They're giving up prospects, which you could use, no doubt, but then you don't have a trade piece. Wilyer Abreu's not that trade piece. I would love for Masataka Yoshida to be that trade piece, but he's not garnering you anything close to that. Joe Ryan or Merrill Kelly. The other name that's being thrown around is still Sandy Alcantara. I don't know, man. That ERA's in the 7s. He's not having a good year, and I don't know that you just come in and Andrew Bailey's the guy to fix you. I doubt that, man. Seth Lugo, kind of the same thing, having a tough year. I don't know that Andrew Bailey's the guy that saves you. You could say that about Zach Gallen too, who I pitched out there. But you're not bringing in Sandy Alcantara to be your number 4 starter, I don't think. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What do the Red Sox need to go get? Who is the guy that's at the top of your list? And who are you willing to part with? Is it Jarren Duran? Is it Wilyer Abreu? Let us know in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are excited about this Red Sox trade deadline. And you can find us here every weekday live at high noon Eastern time on YouTube and then wherever you get your podcasts as well. Check out the other videos on the channel, talking Red Sox, talking a lot of Bruins, and talking everything going on in the world of Boston sports. We'll even have some Patriots talk tomorrow. I'm your host, Cam Stewart. Thank you to Zach Burke for keeping us on the air. And thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you tomorrow on another edition of a little ditty that we like to call The Cam Show.